So it's a great day to start with the privacy discussion on the International Privacy Day. Mr. Rajiv set a very good context for us how to be in compliance with privacy while dealing with AI and ML. So now we are here to discuss about the need for compliance from the sectorial approach. So as discussed earlier, we have our esteemed panelists, Ms. Anushri, Mr. Ashish, and Mr. Srinjoy. To speak a bit about them, I'd like to introduce Ms. Anushri first. She works as a senior manager at Amazon with over 11 years of expertise in IT governance, risk, and compliance. She has successfully led and contributed to technical projects in information security. Her core competences include establishing frameworks, managing risks, conducting compliance audits, and overseeing data privacy initiatives across diverse industries such as banking, finance, e-commerce, telecommunications, and networking. In her role as data privacy professional, she is dedicated to assisting organizations in achieving compliance with global data protection laws. She is committed to finding a harmonious balance between safeguarding the privacy rights of the data subjects and facilitating the growth and success of organization. As our second speaker, I would like to introduce Ashish. He works as a seasoned manager in cyber risk advisory field based in Bangalore, India, with nearly 9 years of expertise into cybersecurity and data privacy. As a SME, he has successfully led diverse advisory initiatives globally specializing in cyber strategy, governance, and implementation of cyber and data privacy frameworks and conducting risk assessments. I think I can go on and on about most of our speakers. I'll take a pause here in order to give more time for us to discuss about the topic. As our third speaker, I'd like to introduce Srinjoy, a highly qualified professional in the field of privacy and data protection. He holds certifications such as CIPPE, CIPM, and FIP from IAPP, and also a certified privacy lead assessor by DSAI. With extensive training experience, he has educated 600 plus professionals in data privacy. Again, I'll take a pause here. Okay, to start with, as I mentioned already, our topic for today is need for sectoral approach in privacy compliance. I know when Rajiv spoke, he mentioned many industries like automotives, healthcare, hospitalization, and much more to add like finance and education systems, etc. We have different sectors which concentrate on specific data. And we are living in the digital era where data has been the cornerstone for a lot of technologies and solutions that have been developed or that are being developed in today's world. And we also know that there are a lot of global regulations such as GDPR in the European region, PIPL in China, again DPDPA in India, which are kind of global approach towards data privacy compliance. Having said that, we also know there are a lot of sectoral approach that are being taken towards compliance, such as FERPA, GLBA, PCI DSS, HIPAA with respect to healthcare industry, etc. So from healthcare organization to telecom industry to financial institutions, there are a lot of different types of data that each of these organizations deal with. So without further delay, let us try to understand the challenges of being compliant with this sectoral approach towards privacy, and what are the advantages and disadvantages involved in this, and how do we balance out the privacy compliance when we talk about different sectors like this, processing different type and sensitivity of the data. So as a first question, I'd like to direct this to Mr. Srinjoy. How does a sectoral approach to privacy compliance differ from a more generalized approach?
Yeah, so if I look at the entire scheme of things, as you rightly put it, there are various perspectives of privacy all across. If you look at, you have the EU kind of thought process, you have the US kind of thought process, and you have the Asian thought process that is there. So when we are talking about sectorial laws, mostly the sectorial law concept comes into the US scheme of things, wherein you have the HIPAA, you have the GLBA for finance data, you have the COPA for children's data, and various other laws. Also, US looks at it from a state perspective. So every state has their own laws, has their own thought processes. Whereas in terms of EU, they look at it from a perspective of a generalized one standard, one law that will be there, which will guide the entire scheme of things. When we are coming to India, in fact, it's a very, very interesting thing that I think we are trying to develop, and which is have the Digital India Act as the overarching structure. Right now we have the DPDPA, and then we have the sectorial. So we have already, we had something called the Disha in the healthcare, which was supposed to be something similar to HIPAA in US. But now we have the health stacks, India Health Stack, Ayushman Bharat schemes. We have the health stacks that are there. We are trying to bring in the financial stack. So these are the advantages and disadvantages. Obviously, we can talk about, but these are the various standards that are there, the various ways in which we are looking at it. The generalized approach, in my view, is always better, but we have to have the detailing of the specifics that are there in the sectorial kind of approach.
Thank you. So Anushri, would you like to add anything more to this question?
No, I think Sanjoy added, or I would say he talks about very particular industries, and he had covered most of the sections and everything. He talks about finance, and I think telecommunication is also one of the major areas for India. One of the an additional factor which I have noticed because of my company, I would say for Amazon, and we had a heated discussion earlier. So yeah, for that, like child and teens data, consents, cookies, he talks about like a CCPA. So all of these regulations are coming very particular set of requirements for a specific industry, specific even within industry also for a particular group, particular things they wanted to focus on. So sometimes it becomes very challenging for organizations where they are dealing with all of these things, how they evaluate, how they manage it, what kind of things they need to do it additionally to be compliant. And on top of that, because they work on various geolocations, so their own country's law, their the demography or the geo where they are going to operate, on that they read additional laws and additional things to do it. So the overburden, the skill set, the individuals who can understand the different set and build those things are one of the primary concerns on the sectoral approach. On top of that, it's good also because for our government bodies, for the organizations and all, they will be able to see that how well I'm understanding the sentiment of the countries. It's a very basic example. I would want to talk about child and teen data. GDPR says that 16 years, Quebec or Canada says 14 years, COPA says 13 years, and even in India we have a different laws. So what happens, how do you deal or tackle those things? It becomes challenging. At the same time, because you want to survive, you want to work better way, don't want to any trouble of a compliance and a regulations, how you're going to implement it better way, these kind of things come into the picture. So, and I think health industry and all other things we talked about, but yeah, those are some of the major aspects which comes in sectoral approach and all those things.
Thanks, Anushri. So what I understand is it is not just US who's taking a sectoral approach. There are other countries who are thinking in this perspective as well. With that, my next question is to Ashish. What are the advantages or disadvantages in taking the sectoral approach towards privacy compliance?
Definitely, thank you. See, now we understand like what is a generic legislation and the sectoral legislation and the approaches. So basically, any company has to go to the cross-sectoral approach. First, they have to have a foundation created. Based on that, one of the advantages, you deal with the specialized data, right? That is a sector-wise data you have to deal and you have to understand because your scope is limited. I need to understand like what data is and how my company is going to implement based on the sectoral requirement. Now, second is there's a specific risk involved, which generic registration will not cover. So that is one of the area we have to see, and that is the advantage where sectoral approach will build in. Third is it gains trust and confidence within the that specific group. Let's say if I have data with one of the bank and if they are following the sectoral approach governed by RBI or any specific in US and EU, they have a confidence that my details, my money is safe. That is one of the area. Sectoral approach, one of the advantage even I think is brings uniformity. So in terms of uniformity, you see most of the same institute follow the same sectoral approach. So that's in the same level where you see. I think these are the 4-5 advantage which I think.
Thank you. I like the last point that Ashish brought out. So many of the similar industries dealing with similar type of data, these industries professionals can also share the learnings that they have come across in being compliant. So that's a great point to be added. Thank you. The next question, again, I would like to go round robin basis. So it's to Srinjoy. What role does technology play in facilitating a sectoral approach to privacy compliance? And are there specific tools or solutions that have proven effective based on your experience?
So, see, technology can always not address every sectorial aspect that is there. That's a one thing that we have to bear in mind. When it comes to pets or the privacy enhancing technologies that are there, various models and various tools will enhance that. So in my role, in my previous role as privacy compliance officer for Bioformis, which was into the healthcare industry, so one of the major things that we were doing over there is to look at various technologies to see which one enhances or supports the privacy dynamics that is there. And whereas we can always discuss that there are various types of technologies that are there. There are homomorphic and all those anonymization, de-anonymization techniques that we can always talk about. But the broad thought process has to be that what exactly are you requiring? Is it that you're requiring a total kind of anonymization wherein you don't want to come back at all to a situation where you can identify a person? Or is it that you want something in between? In terms of the HIPAA, there is a de-identification. You cannot de-identify the data. So what is it that you want? Apart from that, I think one of the disadvantages, if I take that question also, disadvantages is obviously the whole thought process of sectorial laws is that it is very limited to a particular type and set of data. So only that's such a broad categorization that is there. But yes, technology is one thing that we can use.
Thank you. Ashish and Anu, would you like to add anything more to this?
So from the technology side, see, technology or solution plays very critical role in specifically sectoral approach. Now we have seen a lot of examples while previous slides where Rajiv talked about all smart things, either smart fridge, refrigerator, smart card, and so on. Even nowadays we are using smart watches, right? So in that also we have two categories, which is a basic smartwatch, other is having advanced smartwatch, which includes all kind of health related data and other details. So what kind of technology they're bringing in, biometrics and other AI specific tool to analytics, do history analysis of your what health related record. So that is one of the area where technology plays a crucial role. Apart from that, if you see, there are various technologies we see nowadays which is being used in health industry. Pacemaker is one of the example. So if I have to design a pacemaker or build a pacemaker, right, I have to follow a lot of norms, starting from the global regulations till country-wise regulations, till respective privacy related regulations, and then telecommunication because it sends a radio signal. So these are some example of good technologies. Now AI is playing a vital role in this domain now. We have seen AI is nowadays, it's a buzzword nowadays. So AI is doing a lot of medicine analysis, doing a kind of profile analysis. You might have seen advertised nowadays called Orange Labs, right? What they do, they collect all your historic information, feed it to the AI tool, brings the profile for you and says, this is what your health status look like. So there's some example which technology is being very effective.
I think all these things like what is existing solutions and all, but if I'll talk about the organization levels or the purpose, what they are trying to do or what and how they have to invest in terms of to be compliant, to have that tools in place, we all would be using Alexa, Google Play, Home and all those things. So those are like one of the challenges aspect because they keep on listening on your things. You have not registered yourself for health data, but you are talking to your spouse, your kids, something or other thing. And you are by default or indirectly storing that information in Alexa. Alexa as a company or a product was not registered for that data. They would not be knowing all those things. But what they have to do in terms of understanding your information set, oh, they got that information. They have to do a different set of categorization and put that additional controls which is needed. Otherwise, they will be charged. Or they have to do. So it applies to all the small set of companies, all big companies and everywhere. Because of this sectoral approach, they have to comply with all these things. We all use iPhone. We have a FaceTime, we go talk about everything. I'll tell you, FaceTime is not approved for HIPAA. So, like we use it, we haven't given a consent. We don't say that you can store it or you can do this. But I'm talking about as a general user because I'm not aware of that. But if you go to Amazon Cloud, Google Cloud, because they are big companies, they provide customer supports or consumer supports. What they are trying to do, they are trying to comply solution for market so that as in group or a company or as a small company, if you want to use it, you can use that sectoral approach. You can use that approved solutions. We all use Zoom. All we have been using it across WebEx. We have been using with Cisco. We have been using a lot of this kind of communication channels and all. So what companies are trying to do? They are trying to make it compliant for a HIPAA requirements in like a SOC, we all know. They are trying to build a solution. They're saying that independent auditor reviewed my solution. They said that I'm type 1, type 2 approved and everything. You go and use my solution. So this is a 1 or 2 way where you're collecting the information, it's approved. Now comes to your picture or your role. When you collected that information, how you are making sure that the tools, solutions, softwares, anything which you're using it, call it as a product, anything which you want to call it out, but how you're making sure that your solutions are approved and all, you need to make an investment. And then additional last part come, how you share that information, who's using your information, what they're doing with your information, how you are making sure that all these e-informations are secure. It comes on the individual companies and information. So tools are there, but how we are using it, how well we are not just a organization, but as an individual also. We see the privacy notice, we don't bother to read it. I'll be honest, even I'm part of privacy group and a team, I get notification and everything, I'll read 4 lines, okay, this is a privacy notice, I'm done. But I don't read the repercussion, which third party it goes. HIPAA says that, or even I think GLBA says that for annual notice, and for specific things where which third party it goes and all those, we don't bother to say that, oh, this third party should not use it or something. So first thing comes as a consumer or a customer, what steps I am taking, then comes all these organizations whom we are consumer and all, what tools and solutions they are using. So just use that step and all, will be, I think, in better place, and we keep on learning, we'll be continue learning and we'll make better tool. I think HIMS and all other different tools which we'll see in future, I think it will be a better solution where we can use it for sectoral approach as well as our general GDPR or our privacy, other roles or anything on that.
Thanks. So what I understand is we are not calling out one specific tool. As we all know, one size doesn't fit all. So definitely tools and technologies would help us be very helpful in being compliant to a specific law regulation that is applicable. But yeah, it totally depends on what type of business we are into and what compliance we are expected to be part of. With that, I'll go ahead with the next question. How can sectoral approach enhance collaboration and information sharing among organizations within the same industry, especially regarding privacy best practices? So, Shanjoy, would you like to go first?
Sure. Thanks for that. Right, Ashish or anybody could go. So I think one of the cornerstones of GDPR was code of conduct. Now, in India also we have, the media has some standards that are set. I think when I heard this question, one of the things that comes to mind is the first standard, in fact, is for cloud services in GDPR. Code of conduct for cloud services has been adopted. I think that's a good way to go. When we were talking in Rajiv sessions about law versus standard, law is binding on, as he rightly said, law is binding on us. Standards are something that we have to define. But a standard that has got the approval of a law would help in that information sharing, because many of the problems that happen between, say, if I look at healthcare or look at finance or look at any telecommunications, various organizations have various ways of doing things. So we have to have one binding standard that is there, which will help any new player who is coming. Maybe I come out with a telecom tomorrow. So I should know what are the 10 things that I have to do as a sector, as an industry, as an organization. What do I have to do? Those 10 things that are there, and that will enhance the sharing, knowledge sharing. I think the government has come out with some open networks that are there, which are trying to enable that digitization.
Thank you.
No, definitely. Adding to Srijoy's point, there are a couple of ways we can see, and specific organizations come together is rightly said, like CSE is one of the examples. Similarly, collaboration is very important in that cases. Like we have seen a lot of other examples in different industries, like finance, we have seen PCIDS is one of the doing wonderful job. Apart from that, high tech is one of the in healthcare industry. So this is one of the area where we see a lot of collaboration happens. We see one of the areas which is required to be more, the respective companies forward is they meet regulators. So meeting with regulators is very important, because I say technology is changing every day. And if you don't update your sectoral law, I think you will lag behind, because now many of the sectoral laws, if they want to bring AI technology, that will not cover. So that kind of meetings also requires to suggest the new opinions. That is also one of the area which we have to focus. And apart from that, there are other ways we can think is information gathering, like how we have sit together. Respective sectoral companies, they have their own forums where they'll come together, discuss, share the experience, share the solutions. You rightly said, like one of the example we can give is a sandbox environment. So multiple companies come together, build a product in sandbox environment. So that is one of the areas where see, a lot of collaborations happens.
I know you have anything to add more.
Nothing much, only very small point. One thing which I found missing always is like to know there is a law existing. Every other geo where I'm operating, I have a very small number of folks working, or I am processing my data. I would not be knowing like what kind of law exists. I would be concerned about India, US, Canada, or major EU regions. I have company who works in Sri Lanka. I have in Arabic nations. Every day there is a new law being passed. So I need to understand. So there should be some solutions or some ways we go see that which law is coming. I know companies will say that you are not appointed officer to take an action on that or do something, but getting to know these kind of informations are very important. So how to subscribe to that information, how to bring that to the right set of audience within organization so that these kind of things can be utilized is a very important thing. And I think I'm not sure how many of you heard of Lexology. I'm not promoting the product, but it's one of the very good solutions. You can go put comparison to the two laws, see the differences. Even you can see what is the new law is launched. They produce the articles, they provide their own opinions and everything. So first subscribe to that. Understand what is coming new, what is happening, even if it's not a law, what is basic thing is discussed around it. So what happens in these kind of privacy programs or a privacy groups, you will be able to understand, and then you will be able to take an action, and you will know that what new things are coming and all those. So this is one of the additional tools apart from how I'm handling my privacy. That's additional thing, but this is like how to learn where and what things being changed. That's one thing I wanted to call out on that.
Thank you. So sharing is caring. So as we all know, in 2018, GDPR made a lot of noise, and many of us in the same field, we were worried, how do we comply? Is this the right way to do it, to be in compliance? What does the DPO expect us to do? So as all others said, being in touch with the similar professionals and learning how things are done in their industry, and probably imbibing those learnings in our day-to-day work would definitely be helpful. So the next question is, what challenges do organizations encounter in implementing sectoral approach to privacy compliance, and how can these be overcome? I would direct this to Ashish first, since he's in the consulting domain for so long, being part of Deloitte, EY, etc.
No, definitely, be it a cross-sectoral approach or even sectoral legislative approach, there are a lot of challenges we face, as you rightly said, like when GDPR introduced, we were of thinking how we are going to implement, but I think we are more compliant now. Specifically in sectoral challenge, let's put in the three sectors, three buckets: people, process, technology. From the people side, I think a lot of things, when new sectoral approach comes, we find there's a skill set required, specific knowledge about that law is required. When it comes to process part, when you do the data mapping, you find it very hard. How? Because the scope is narrowed. There are various data discovery happens. We have to identify such data. That is one of the process we have to build upon. And in technology, sometimes when specifically our technology is outdated, that is one of the area where you have to, have your respective team member to work, infrastructure to be built according to that. So PCI DSS and other regulations you have seen, which requires separate set of technologies to be used. I think we have to have that kind of technology with us.
Either of you want to add anything to it?
So, yeah, sectorial specification, the sector-specific laws makes your compliance very narrow. But as an organization, you will never have only that set of data that is there. So you have to have a way in which what we typically call as the legal framework assessment. So you have to have the way to identify, first of all, whether GDPR is applying, whether HIPAA is applying, whether GLBA is applying, whether any of the sector-specific laws are applying. So once you have that boundary or the environment that is there, then you can club or bucket, as you rightly said, it into the categories of the data, do the data mapping analysis and do the categorization of what is the kind of data that you have in terms of the healthcare, what is the kind of information you have for finance, etc., etc. And so the whole dynamic. Hack ho gaya. So there were there are other thoughts that are coming from there. so you have to have the whole dynamics that is there. As an organization, it's very challenging for me. So when I was building up the GDPR, I was building it up for Genpact. One of the major problems that was there, Genpact is an outsourcing company which is into many things that are there. So where is the data? That's the first question that I start asking and trying to figure out. Okay, these are the buckets of data. And believe it or not, 2 years, 2016 to 2018, that was the cooling off period, was barely enough or not enough for full compliance. So even from and time is going to be, even in the DPDPA, time is going to be a very, very important factor, because what we are hearing is they're not going to give time. So 6 months to 1 year's time they'll give, which is perhaps for organizations that are already on the journey, maybe better, but for organizations that are just starting up, it's going to be very challenging. But I think that's where, as an organization, we have to look at, as representatives of organizations, we have to look at it from that point of view as to how do we get to that compliance, whether at the sector level or at the general level. Just broad thoughts.
Thank you. Would you like to add anything more?
I think not much. Everything is in terms of identification of data, what to do with that data, how we are storing, what we'll do, and everything processing. Everything Shinjoy covered very well. Uh, Point comes like the challenges for the companies or even small scale companies which is in there. How well they are going to, how much money they are going to spend, or what kind of resources, and how they are going to do all those things, it's become very challenging. Okay, we all the time, and I think I took example of Alexa earlier, and I was talking about consent and cookie. We all like see in Amazon as a big company, enough resources, enough money, and everything. Point is that even they face challenge, like how as early as to be compliant with that, so that none coming and seeing that, oh, Amazon's name is there, just go bombard and see those things. So what happened, like I was giving example of the consent of age. Quebec law was consent age 13, they increased it 14. Okay, I have to just take one set of the data out of that whole discussion and change the consent years and everything. It requires, like, I'll talk about FinOps and FinTech, that's a vertical I have. And there they include all the cloud information, they have their payment information, they have their health information, all those verticals, they have information. But identifying just that very small set of data, I'm talking about only one small piece of regulation required, how much efforts and time they need to spend it from scratch, from one bottom to another bottom, like a 5,000 and 6,000 applications I'm talking, or services. Apart from that, where additional part is stored, I'm not talking about that. It requires so much effort. So just because we are GDPR compliant, so it become easier because I have the categorization, I have the information. But doing that small portion, additional, I'm spending 6 months time to doing this, to be compliant, which I could have used to do additional compliance requirement, additional thing. So this is a challenge, which I'm talking about big companies. But if I see some startup companies and all, they don't even have resources, or they don't have things to pay to the people who come and do this job. They have a decentralized nature. We all just give them a random data. We go all the POS systems to shopping and everything. What do? We buy from a small business and a household. What do? We give them email ID. We give them all other information. They need to be compliant with the finance because they have there some additional things where they are making the payments or UPIs. So they have to do, even though they are not doing a direct UPIs, but they have to be compliant. They have to follow a lot of things because they are storing some of the things. They are not storing your CVV number, but they are having some card numbers. They have your transaction numbers. Anything which they have way to track you, and you would be able to identify in some 2 or 3, just checking for additional portions and everything. So what happened? It becomes very, very challenging for them. So we need to see how we can do a better job, or government or other places, how it can be provided a better solutions and all those things, so these companies cannot adhere. But these are open question, open challenges. I don't have an answer, I'll be honest. I don't have a solution which I can say small scale business or a household business can use it and they will be compliant within a day. No, it's not there. So training them, teaching them, providing them solutions, how we can do a better job, that's dependent on all of us. And that's the biggest challenge of sectoral approach, or any kind of privacy or any other thing which we are bringing into the solutions, or a financial, telecommunication, anything on that direction as well.
Thank you. So to summarize this, what I have to say is the organization should know the 3 W's: what, where, and why. So what type of data you have, where do you store it, and why do you need that data? As long as you figure that out, you're halfway through towards your privacy compliance. So with that, with the interest of time, I would open up the podium for the questions from the audience. Do you? Sure.
See, we are talking about sectoral coming together as well as country. Both we were interpolated in this discussion. But how far it is going to look into the practical that could happen, because industries are not ready to come together. Once if a particular sector, when I am heading there, if I try to get data pertaining to that sector, it may lead to my loss also. So there is a commercialization, commercial interest. Whether commercial interest will rule over this and destroy this, or this will be implemented. That's what should be thought of. According to me, this sectoral thing is only a myth. It could not happen at a large scale where it can have an effective one, because it will disturb the commercial interest of the industries. This is what we have seen in respect of all other. This also is going to head. What is your opinion on this?
So, see, sir, the whole point is that we have to have the overarching law that is there, but when we are talking about sector specific, we have to have the details of. So, if you look at, if you would have read the earlier versions of the Act, wherein we had the sensitive data, we had the critical data that was being defined. Now, what was that? That was actually in talking in terms of sector-specific guidances that are there. Where, see, if I'm healthcare, finance, I would say if healthcare, finance, children's data, they are the key aspects that are there wherein we need a sector-specific law to go more into detail, to give guidances to organizations, to give guidances to how we can comply with it, what additional things we need to do to comply with it. And they, in this present act, they are going to be the data fiduciaries, which will be called as the significant data fiduciary. And their compliance and the impetus on them to comply with certain guidances will be much more. So I think as a country, we have to wait and watch as to let the act evolve, let the rules evolve, and then then the courts itself will take charge of it and give jurisprudence. Yeah.
I wanted to add one point on that. Even though we say that there was no law existing for us, we will call out privacy laws and all those things which we had, IT Act and all. First of all, for India, companies like India, where everybody wants to do investment, want to come and all, we wanted something to be in place. And I think that's what Shinjoy was saying, that we have to wait and watch what is happening and what's coming. Very basic example, as an individual, I'll take it. I'm fine to give somebody my name and my email address. What they will do, this is my personal information, what they will do. They will send me email, they will do something. I have other ways to block or do something. I'm just talking about that perspective. But somebody is using my health information, somebody is using my child's data, they are doing something about that information, or they are using my financial things to manipulate me or put me in something, a fraud situation. It's my mental and physical harassment. All those things become a sectoral approach. Even though we try or we don't try it, we say that it's very difficult to implement and all, but we should start thinking first as an individual, how it impacts to us. Why is it become so critical? Why is it important to understand those things? Why is it additional controls needed on those areas? Because it has a very high impact. We all are risk professionals. Before privacy, I would say, nobody was born here as a privacy professionals. We all always calculate our risk with the probability or the impact. So everything in these terms also goes into that narrative. Once I'm not calculating that, every privacy laws and everything, it's in general approach. If I'll put everything into the same category, then what is the difference? So that part is very much required. And that level of population, that level of industry, and the developing countries like India, where we have a big visions, we need to start from somewhere, and then we'll be able to evolve. So I just wanted to call out at that approach, why sectoral approach is important and needed. Even though it's difficult for organization to do it, we all talked about disadvantages, efforts, resources, money, and everything, but why is it important? It's important for an individual, even the company is paying the money or doing something about it. No, sir. It's a totally different area, sir. We were not at all talking about it.
Already, you have PCI DSS and iTrust CSS, right? So they have collaborated. The industry,
Question was not that, don't worry.
It is not that.
Sir, to try to put some thoughts here, so no question, straightforward answer to it. As everybody were indicating, we are all trying to attempt. So today, one thing we need to be understanding, the technologies are evolving, which is very dynamic, okay? Irrespective of your nature of a business or sector or industry. So you have to adopt the technology to be competitive on that one. When you are trying to be ahead of your technology, how you can control your systems and internal process or creating awareness to the team or a stakeholder who are involved in it, it's easy to bring it out with the sector specific, right? So the thought process comes is, if you are talking to the fintech company, so it's easy, they can understand what kind of information which comes in. The definitions or classifications are completely different. Okay, every country they have a classification. Today, India, it doesn't classify. All will be considered as personal data. So how do you filter your data? Governance comes in. Or when you are trying to implement your technology standards and reasonable measures, I think that's where these sector-specific controls will be able to establish. One. And the second angle to it is reporting. If you would like to analyze your data either within your system or reporting to an external regulators or agency, it can be very easy to come down within sector specific. The third is ownership, accountability, or in terms, sir, maybe expert in terms of the IP ownership or asset classification in terms of your own values considering in your books, or probably paying your tax aspect when you are defining what is asset, how that will be calculated. I think these are all the different aspects to be factored when you are trying to go within sector. But always I recommend you should have a comprehensive, holistic data which will govern your thumb principle, where organization has to have, yes, I do have. When you are getting into the niche product or services to every sector, you can bifurcate and segregate. Additionally, what I can build over that fundamentals which is required for me to strengthen the more controls. I think this is just my thoughts, sir.